All right, well, before we get started with the meeting, we actually do have some poll questions for you all that we'd like to ask. So the first question is, what is your primary relationship to the study area? So it looks like we have a lot of residents, a lot of property owners, a lot of people who work in the area. That's great. So a lot of different people, a lot of different backgrounds. This is good. Okay, well, we have another question for you. Let's get that one up. Sorry about that. Okay, so here is the second question. How many times have you attended events or contacted staff related to this study? All right, just going to give people a few more seconds to respond. All right, so we've got a few first timers here. Welcome. But we do have some people who've been with us throughout the project so far, so that's good. Got some seasoned veterans here. All right. Well, thank you for answering the poll. So let's get started. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tatiana Gonzalez with Planning Commission staff. I want to thank you for attending the virtual open house for the Wimauma Village Residential 2 Land Use Study and Community Plan Update. So the presentation this evening is going to summarize the proposed updates to the Wimauma Community Plan and the WVR2 land use category. I'm going to share an agenda with you this evening. Go. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. So our agenda this evening is as follows. We're going to begin with a presentation by Taryn Sabia. She is the director of the Florida Center for Community Design and Research at the University of South Florida. Then we're going to follow that with some breakout sessions. We're going to have people split up into small groups, and we're going to have some discussions. Then we're going to bring everyone back together and have each group report on their discussion to the whole group. And then we're going to have a Q&A session. So at the end, we're going to provide an update on the project's next steps. But before we begin, I just want to say we want to mention that we strongly encourage your participation in the group activities tonight. You can ask questions and you can submit comments at any time during the meeting by typing them into the chat. We're going to address each of your comments and questions during the summary discussion at 7. If you want to speak during the Q&A, you can raise your hand. You can click on the participants button on the bottom right, on the bottom, and then on the right of that, there's 3 dots, and you can click on raise hand. And when you raise your hand, then we'll read your name and we'll unmute you so you can speak. So know that the presentation is recorded. So if you need to step away from the meeting for any reason, or if you want to review the presentation again later, we're going to post the full recording of this meeting on the Wimauma project webpage. So we're also going to compile all of the questions and comments that we received this evening, and we're going to publish those as well on the project webpage. So I think now I'm going to turn it over to our presenter, Taryn Sabia. Let me just stop sharing my screen.
So first, hi everyone, and to those of you who are sharing your video, thank you. It's really great to see so many of you. It's been a while. I know that some of you have seen more recently than others, either through virtual meetings or when we have been in the community earlier in August at our safe, socially distanced workshop that we did. So, but thank you. It's great to see you. I'm excited to be back in front of everyone again. The presentation that we're going to share tonight is a bit of a continuation on what you've seen so far in the development of the overall community plan. And so we're going to walk through what some of those items are and then let you have a chance to ask questions, as Tatiana said. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started with the presentation. Okay, so community plan update.
Oh, I think we lost Taryn. Oh no, there she is.
Taryn, you're currently muted.
All right, there we go. Are the settings back up and working?
Yes.
All right, and can you still see my screen or no?
No.
Okay. All right, are we back up, Tatiana?
Yes, you are good.
Excellent, thank you. Sorry about that, everybody. Technical difficulties will never fail. So at the request of the Board of County Commissioners, this land use study and the community plan update began in January earlier this year in 2020. And it has gathered information from residents, from business owners, property owners, and citizens about the current state of development within Wimauma, focusing on the Wimauma Village Residential 2, or the WVR2, as we call it, and also looking at the development within downtown Wimauma along State Road 674. So the study has updated and reaffirmed the existing Wimauma community plan in many ways, and we'll touch on some of that this evening, and creating a set of supplemental zoning regulations to help guide the form and function of downtown Wimauma, and provide new guidance as to how development within the WVR2 might occur. The WVR2 is one of 30 land use categories that is employed by the county to help guide development. Land use categories in tandem with a separate zoning district regulate any number of things that make up your neighborhood. So how many homes can be built, how far apart they can be, sometimes even what they look like, what kind of businesses will locate down the street, and how much parking they can have. Just a few of the numerous things that regulations can cover in the zoning that takes place within your neighborhoods. So, and just to remind everyone a little bit about the outreach that has taken place so far, we had done a big kickoff meeting and a charrette back in March, just before the pandemic. And I have to say, I'm really excited that we did it that week and we were able to get in and be with the community for 3.5 full days, gathering input and sharing ideas with everyone. It was a really successful kickoff, and we learned a lot from the community about issues, concerns, opportunities, and the potential that everyone noted in their word cloud. We've also done a community survey, which was previously launched in April and June. We've done virtual work sessions in June. We've presented to the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners, and meetings with the community groups in this past August, both virtual and in person. And so those are just some of the things that we wanted to recap for everyone in case you're new to the process or maybe haven't been here along the entire way with us. Some of the key objectives, and these were elements that we wanted to highlight. Some of these are new, but some of them are really just expanded from the original community plan, but they really did help guide us through the update. And so some of these important pieces were to create urban and community design strategies to embrace mobility and establish a network that was be connected throughout Wimauma. And this was talked about quite a bit in terms of connecting both the existing residential areas with the downtown and new residential areas with the downtown. So we've heard a lot about walkability, public transit, bicycle networks, and kids being able to walk and bike to and from school. These are things that have carried over from the original plan. We have emphasized them a bit more and given them some emphasis in the community plan update. The distinct vision and character for Wimauma, this was something that was also carried through that we brought forward from the original plan. The place-like qualities, revitalizing Wimauma's downtown. This was something that was also really important, creating opportunities for strengthening the community's access to jobs, to education in the region overall. So these were things that we had heard during the workshop and the charrette, as well as the survey, and then maintaining the affordability of Wimauma. This was something that we heard quite a bit from a number of residents and business owners, and also wanting to be able to expand that affordability as well. to ensure that the final Wimauma Village Community Plan communicates a framework for sustainable and coordinated community development is also something that was really important. There is a reciprocal relationship between downtown and the rest of the Wimauma area, and having everyone share in that prosperity will be a key piece that is a thread throughout the community plan. And encouraging affordable housing is also one. And adopting policies that will help achieve the community plan, which is where we're going to focus tonight. So some of the health, equity, resilience, and sustainability guiding principles led us to understand some of the most critical needs that are in Wimauma now. So looking at health, access to health care, access to a healthier lifestyle, access to safer streets for all ages. And these were things, again, that we found were critical from hearing from the community and also doing analysis within Wimauma. For housing, a thorough needs assessment, is something that we think is really going to be critical. Resilient housing that is connected to resources and amenities, and financial assistance and housing for mobile home replacement. Opportunities to invest locally. This is something that we thought was also a critical need, and we heard discussed quite a bit. Opportunities to earn locally also goes hand in hand with that. So looking at the capacity of infrastructure and the capacity to preserve and capitalize on the valuable resources of open space in the agricultural landscape and rural character that Wimauma has. So this was the vision that we updated for the community plan, and really some of the key pieces that I'll just highlight briefly is that a walkable community connected by a network of trails with thriving local businesses and farmers markets along a porch-like Main Street, a community which is safe and welcoming to residents and businesses with access to educational opportunities and healthcare. These are just some of the pieces that we think are really important in terms of tying those critical needs and opportunities together and bringing it under one vision. One of the other key elements that focused on was a community-wide approach. So those of you that have been with us through the process have heard me talk a lot about the idea of a self-sustaining community and what that means for Wimauma. And again, this relationship of the WVR2 to the downtown and the existing residential areas within the urban service boundary. So through the urban design framework, we wanted to support the livable communities element goals, and you can see those here. So again, it's really to encourage and allow for that self-sustaining component so that all neighborhoods can contribute to the prosperity of Wimauma. So these are really the main categories that we focused on. So looking at mobility and different types of mobility, forming character and focusing on the town and the rural landscape components within that, breaking that down into districts in the downtown and the WVR2. And then also looking at the environment and open space. We know that this is a really key component for the community. It was in the original plan, and that has carried forward in terms of conservation areas, looking at low impact design as being some of the green infrastructure for roadways and streets, being able to focus on and expand the amenity of agriculture within the community and highlight that aspect. And then cultural capital. So we actually feel that there's a lot of cultural capital in Wimauma. You have a number of organizations who work with the community on a regular basis. There are schools in the area. There is talk of expansion of schools. There is the potential for shared resources, and the social network is something that we think is very strong. And so these elements coming together really can help move the community plan forward, and again, emphasize that shared vision. So the WVR2, overall, again, we want to develop policy which supports those community goals. And in order to avoid a pattern of single dimensional development that could contribute to urban sprawl, it is the intent of this category to designate areas inside the boundaries of the Wimauma Village Plan that are suited for agricultural development in the immediate horizon of the plan, but may be suitable for the expansion of the village as described. So this is, again, was the original intent, and we are carrying this forward, and we're looking at how we can create more of a self-sustaining nature and help to support the downtown with new development that we see. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we move into the next slides. So here we're showing some of the key components that we have built into policy, including the idea of connectivity and street networks, open space and maintaining open space requirements, and clustering, and encouraging clustering to happen within the new developments of the WVR2. This again is something that was carried forward from the future land use element. We have increase the clustering ratio in the new plan, and we're doing it in conjunction with several other policies to really help encourage open space, both for conservation and for recreation in Wimauma, and to also encourage that clustering to happen as close to the existing urban service boundary as possible, so that there is the strong connection between the WVR2 and the existing urban service area in downtown of Wimauma. So one of the other key components in the policy is taking place and shifting from the employment requirement. We know this has been something that's been brought up. It was identified as a need in the market study, and we're expanding on things that subdivisions are currently often tasked with, but we wanted to make sure that we could reflect the specific benefits that were identified in the Wimauma Community Plan. So the idea is to shift from the employment requirement, which is currently in the policy, to the community benefits requirements. And those community benefits requirements focus on things like land and dedication for parks, schools, and trails, infrastructure, diversity of housing types within the WVR2, so that we get again, different options there for people to live, mobility improvements, and the preservation of open space. So the benefits list that we have within the policy does expand on these further, but I wanted to give everyone an idea of what some of those look like and how they fit in to the overall community goals. So when we start to talk about the density allowances, we wanted to be able to show you what is currently in the policy and what is proposed. So currently there's 1 unit to 5 acres, and it can become 2 dwelling units per gross acre. This is something that a number of our landowners are familiar with already, with the clustering ratio of 3.5. What we're proposing is not changing that element, but we are proposing increasing the ability to cluster. The reason that we're proposing the increase in clustering is really to support a more sustainable pattern of development. If we can cluster houses closely, they can utilize amenities better, and they can cluster them in such a way that it would really, again, lend itself to being a more self-sustaining community, creating that reciprocal relationship between the WVR2 to support the downtown. Also proposed is a 20% affordable housing density bonus, in which we would, if that affordable housing component is met by new development, it would allow the clustering ratio to increase up to 8 dwelling units per net acre. The reason that that increase is taking place for the clustering is so that we can allow for the diversity of housing types, so that we might see townhouses or small apartment houses that get built within the scale of the neighborhoods, and again, be able to create that diversity within those newly developed neighborhoods. So the transfer of development rights, this is another policy component that we looked at quite a bit. It is currently already in the code and allowed, but the current one allows for what you see here in terms of the transfer of a 1-to-1 ratio within the WVR2. So it would allow someone to transfer a developable unit from one WVR2 property to another WVR2 property. As you can see here. And what we're proposing is that it would allow transfers from the WVR2 to the downtown. So moving developable parcels out of the WVR2 area into the downtown area or the urban service boundary. The reason that this is significant is because we are looking at creating a downtown receiving zone, and that receiving zone would offer a new ratio. It would be a ratio of 1-to-2. So every 1 unit coming out of WVR2 could be worth 2 units within the receiving zone. So this is a way to encourage development to happen within both the downtown and within the urban service boundary. And it is also included as one of those elements of the community benefits. And so this is another way for us to help support downtown and Main Street by adding units there, as you can see in this slide here. So this is a really key piece. In order for development to support a thriving Main Street, we have to have enough of it. And typically we see 1,000 to 2,000 rooftops to support 1 block of Main Street. So with the proposal that we are putting forward for Wimauma and looking at the potential of how many blocks of Main Street we think there is potential for, we're looking at, 8 to 10 blocks of Main Street total. These are smaller blocks. They're not extremely dense blocks, but they will require a certain number of households to be able to support them. So this is one of the reasons that we're looking at that type of policy, both to support the Main Street as well as to also support the rural character outside of the urban service area. For the downtown Wimauma, again, we're still looking at policies that will help support the community goals. And a number of these elements are within the livable communities element within our comp plan. So we're looking to revitalize the Wimauma downtown by developing a downtown master plan. And so this helps give us a sense of what it looks like and where we're looking to promote business growth. So the shaded area here is the area that I just spoke about as the receiving zone. It's an area that has room for development, and we're looking to see that area be able to develop in terms of the added density through transfer of development rights and through a downtown overlay. Now, the downtown overlay will not rezone properties. And so that's a key piece. And we would only see properties rezoned if there was a significant expansion of an existing property or a use was going to be changed. The dashed line is showing you the proposed main streets. We are still including the portion of State Road 674 within what we would consider the Main Street corridor, but we're also shifting that Main Street to a north-south orientation and taking advantage of the anchors that are just south of 674 and also at the north end of 4th Street with the senior center that is there. 4th really does give an opportunity to create more Main Street character. And by creating the T shape for the corridor, it gives us a chance to address the safety issues that are at the intersection of 4th and State Road 674, which we know were a big concern to the community, especially with Wimauma Elementary being here just south of 674 and wanting the kids to be able to walk and bike to and from school. And again, this is just a conceptual image of the potential gateway. We heard a lot from the community about the forming character within the overlay district, and also looking at how older Florida towns, designate an arrival. And so this idea of the arrival to Wimauma was something that we heard echoed in the community. Again, this is just a conceptual idea of what it could look like. But we wanted to show everyone, what a gateway element might be. And this is being proposed, to be at that entrance of Main Street, that intersection of where those two Main Street corridors come together. And again, for forming character, this one is also important in terms of just showing conceptual scale. Again, we're showing brick in the renderings. The buildings, there's no requirement that that is the material that would be used, but we are encouraging porch-like frontages on the stores and things that would help tie back to that small town feel of Wimauma and the overall character of an old Florida small town. So these were some of the key pieces. We heard quite a bit about wanting, to have that feel in the downtown and on Main Street. And this, again, is looking at the housing and the affordable housing component. We're trying to support this through the downtown receiving zone. Private property owners would be able to rezone their properties for increased densities. This is something that is already allowed in the code for affordable housing. We're hoping that the receiving zone is something that really encourages it and gives it a landing place for that to happen. That would be allowed to also happen in a potential stacking mechanism with the transfer of development rights. So those two things could come together within that receiving zone area. And so we just wanted to be able to, again, help promote some of the existing elements that are within the code, but organize them in such a way that it gives everyone that shared vision of where they can and potentially should be happening. The downtown strategic action plan, the idea of the strategic action plan and having one came from discussions with the community and some of the organizations in the community, as well as components that were in the original plan for Wimauma. So looking at leveraging assets in Wimauma that would be enacted by the community. So this is really helping organize initiatives that the community can advocate for within their plan. And so these are the topic categories that we focused on within those, and looking for ways the community can help advocate for development opportunities, for business development, for education, affordable housing, multimodal opportunities, health and wellness, infrastructure, and public realm. So these are categories that you see throughout the plan. We do have some of these elements that are attached to policy components, but the strategic action plan focuses on those things that the community can do. So just going forward, letting everyone know what next steps are. We have another survey online. So we're encouraging everyone to go online and take the survey. We have today's workshop with all of you. There's a planning commission November 9th. And then we will have additional planning commission and board of county commissioner workshops coming next month. January and February, we anticipate the public hearing process to begin. And then in May, the moratorium ends. So We're encouraging everyone to stay connected with us. And you can do that through a number of ways, including checking out the project website, which is here on this slide. And you can go there for more information. We have all of the document drafts there which you can view. And then if you have questions, you can reach out to Tatiana Gonzalez, who will help answer those questions or put you in touch with me or anyone that can help provide some answers. And you can see that we have 2 video links here, one in English and one in Spanish, which gives an overview of the project, and it is posted up on that project website as well. So please take a look at the website. If you have questions, if you're looking for documents, it's a great place to go. There's been previous videos that have been posted from the previous meetings, as well as presentations and the policy drafts. So with that, I will turn it over to Tatiana and Dana, who are going to lead us into our breakout rooms.
Well, I guess it's time to actually hear from some of our breakout groups. Let's see, who shall we start with? I can find my chat.
Oh, I think I was going to do that because I know who's in the breakout rooms. Yeah, so in breakout room 1, that was the one I was in. That was John Patrick taking notes for us.
Okay.
So John, if you are able to share some of the takeaways.
Sure, yeah. So for the question number 1, can you read out the question number 1, Dana? And then I can read out the...
Sure. Yeah, what are the benefits of the proposed plan?
So some of the takeaways from this was moving away from the employment requirements to community benefits. Original issues within the downtown was never addressed. So this gives an opportunity to address those. Transportation can be addressed. Drinking water quality was brought up. And the other one was new voices included in the new plan is a benefit to the community as well. So those were the main points that was discussed in group 1 or question 1.
Okay.
So
are we just answering question 1 or both questions, Tatiana, with the takeaways?
Well, we can probably gather all the questions and then address them during the discussion.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, and then, okay, so breakout room 2, we had Taryn and Maggie took notes.
So I'm happy to jump in. Is Maggie, are you here? Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me talking?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was actually thinking maybe we should turn it over to Mike Marina, but it was a really interesting conversation about affordability. And I can paraphrase, stop me if I didn't get anything right, but we had concerns about the limitations to 80% AMI and just leaving a very specific population out of the assistance mechanism for housing. A lot of that had to do with big jumps in the price of land and developing land if it didn't have services, but also the cost of construction right now. And then just comparing that with the state benchmark and SHIP funding that is available for 100 to 120% AMI, leaving families out if they earn anything over 80%. So that was, I think that's something that we'd like to discuss further. That conversation continued to talk about just ways to track the affordable subsidies and mechanisms that the county does and does not have in place. currently to just kind of keep tabs on the maintenance of affordable housing within the region. How'd I do, Michael?
I think you did. I think you did
Okay.
well, I think you did well, Maggie. We did talk about having an opportunity to shorten the term for affordability for especially on some of the low and very low to
Mhm.
allow people to capitalize on the equity that they build in their home. Currently, I think it's a 15-year restriction, maybe reducing that down to 5 to give those lower income folks opportunity to build wealth.
Thank you. Yeah. So that took up our whole time.
So, and I realized that we went slightly rogue on you in that we got into this very deep discussion on affordable housing and away from the standard questions. But I guess this is what happens when when I get the group. So, so I would say overall the benefit that they drew on was that there is a bonus for affordable housing, and then it went from there.
Okay, group 3 is Tatiana.
Okay, so some of the benefits that the group reported on was they were really happy with there being a downtown focus. That was part of the original community plan to actually have a plan for the downtown. So they were really happy that we've really focused in on that during this update. They also were happy about potentially eliminating the job requirement for WVR2. And also about the Main Street character, focusing on that and maintaining that for the downtown. And in regards to affordable housing, incentivizing maybe single family development. Some of the questions that they wanted clarification on was all about the community benefits. What do they mean? How would they be implemented? By the Planning Commission or whoever. Also, are there any incentives for upgrading housing? There was also a question on the government district. There was a concern about whether or not that was the best place for it in the plan. Because there's a concern that it's mostly residential uses in that area, and they were worried that they might displace residents in the long run. So that's also a concern. So they just want some general clarification on some of the uses that will be permitted in the downtown. I think I jotted down as quickly as possible. Mike or anyone else who was part of the group, let me know if I missed something.
This is Jessica. I'll add in Karen's idea of adding a community benefit of a fund, perhaps, to fund rehabilitation downtown or something, that another voluntary community benefit, something to look into.
Let me also add that the question about the location of the government center, the person who brought that up asked why such a thing couldn't be perhaps on the east end, where we've already got a fire station established and the county owns some of that property over there at the corner of 579 and 674. So that alternative option is what prompted the question about the government center.
Okay.
All right, great. So breakout room 4 was moderator Jay and note taker Fatima.
So Holly Jameson was going to go ahead, one of the residents out there, and give a little bit of a report. So Holly, if you want to go ahead and turn on your microphone.
There we go. Okay, we were group 4, and we had a pretty wide-ranging conversation. We didn't really stick to the question very well, but a couple of things that came up that were pretty important. First of all, we did talk a little bit about clustering and how that could be a benefit in terms of open land and space. I thought Ronald brought up a really good point that we should not think of ourselves as consumers in Wimauma, but as investors in Wimauma. And I thought that was very appropriate. Some of the needs we really addressed, talking about the population in Wimauma. And again, affordable housing did come up. What could the paths be to either owning or renting? And what are the options and how does that fit into the WVRT, which we found out from Jay does not include affordable housing. So I think we need to investigate that further. I was not aware of that. The other lords from RCMA talked about the need for health care in our community that's easily accessible. And finally, with the piece of it that talks about the strategic action plan, how do we involve the most number of people and groups to really become advocates for the Wimauma Village Plan and for the changes that we hope to implement? We didn't come up with any real answers, but more questions. So that's where we were at.
Well done, Holly.
Okay, and then breakout room 5 was facilitator Gina and note taker Katrina.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I think I'm lighting up. So some of the benefits that we talked about were having jobs closer to where you live and the overlay as well. And we had a lot of discussion about things that need additional clarification. So there were some questions about the job requirement being taken out and how that could be further discussed and clarified. How you are defining affordable housing in the plan and what that means in this context. There was a lot of concern about the increased density and how it was listed a lot in the presentation, but some participants in our group don't want increased density. They also discussed the overlay design, that it was neat, but some participants wish that there was more information about the overall design aspect. And what is the guarantee for bringing in different types of housing besides cookie cutter subdivisions? There was some discussion on trails, and has TICO expressed any interest in allowing a trail within their ownership corridor? Specific concerns about road improvements, as a lot of the roads are congested now. There's concern over the new high school going in at Westlake, and that residents will face increased congestion based on that. Concerns about 674 and 301 congestion, pedestrian amenities, lack of crosswalks and sidewalks, and dump trucks. And also some questions about Main Street being within FDOT's right-of-way, and has FDOT been contacted about coming up with a street redevelopment plan for Main Street? So lots of questions going on in our group tonight.
All right, and that was our last group. Okay. Well, that's a lot of great discussion that you guys had in just 15 minutes. Okay. Well, I think we can move forward on to our question and answer session. But before we do that, I wanted to actually recognize that Commissioner Mariella Smith has joined us this evening for this event. So it's great to have her here. Hi. And I believe we also have someone from Commissioner Kemp's office as well, Ms. Lawson. Thanks for joining us as well. So it'll be great to, oh, there she is. Thank you. Hi. It's great to have the commissioners, being involved with the project as much as they are. So it's always great to see them, especially being involved with these interactive activities that we're doing. So. All right, well, let's get to the questions then. Katrina, do you have those?
Yes, I just emailed them to you earlier, some of the chat questions.
Okay.
One of the first ones that might be worth talking about while Tatiana brings that up, Taryn, is the affordable housing within Hillsborough County, how that is a continuation of existing policy, and we're expanding the use for the WVR2. I'll let you take it away from there.
Sure. So right now within the urban service boundary, Hillsborough County has an affordable housing density bonus that is currently offered. So, and Jay, please correct me if I get this wrong at all, but it allows you to go up to the next land use category. So if it is residential 6, then you go up to res 9, correct? Res 9 is next. So that is currently allowed already. When we are noting it in downtown and highlighting the receiving zone, where we're hoping that we can capitalize on the transfer of development rights, we're also hoping that this becomes an attractive zone for the affordable housing density bonus. That bonus can be used anywhere within the urban service boundary, but we think that by having the density clustered around the main streets, it will then help to support the vibrancy of those main streets and the local businesses. And it gives us an area where we can have it concentrated in Wimauma and encourage so that it's not just adding density everywhere, but rather concentrating it in certain areas where it makes sense. And again, these are not, these are not densities like what you see behind me in my background here, right? These are still small scale, small town densities, similar to the scale of things that you saw in the renderings that we showed. But it would allow for there to be more units and more diversity of units because of that density. And then for the WVR2, what we're doing is we're allowing for a 20% affordable housing density bonus. And this is so that we can get a bit more diversity of housing types. Someone talked about not wanting to see the typical cookie cutter single family. By having one of the community benefits requirements that can be selected from to have a variety of housing types, in the policy within the land development code, we have shown a series of different housing types that could be chosen from. They range from single family to apartment houses and townhouses. And so being able to get more of a diversity within there. But that does mean that we're looking at higher clustering ratios and things like that in order to get those housing types. And so that's one of the reasons that we're seeing that. The bonus density in the WVR2 in adding more density via affordable housing is, again, a way to be able to create more diversity of the housing types. We're not trying to add density haphazardly, but to do it in a focused way. And again, by increasing those clustering ratios, it allows us to keep still the large percentage of open space that was within the original future land use element and is still continued in the future land use element. Does that help clarify it? I know there's some other questions in terms of affordability periods and how it's being defined. The county currently defines affordable housing as 80% area median income, AMI, and below. So that's a key piece. My group was asking, what does that mean? What can someone afford? So just, for purposes of just understanding what that means, if you are making 100% of the county's area median income for a family of 4, you are earning just under $58,000 a year currently. It's about $57,000 and some dollars. What that means is if you go to a mortgage calculator, you can typically get a mortgage for about $180,000 if you have good credit. So that's at 100% of the area median income. So these are important things to understand when we're looking at the housing typologies the housing types and the breakdown of what they might look like, both within the WVR2 and the downtown, if we are trying to achieve a self-sustaining community with a full spectrum of income ranges.
Right, and what we wanted to stress in that, Taryn, again, was the fact that it is an expansion of an existing policy afforded to Hillsborough County into the Wimauma Village Residential 2 land use category. That's the big change that's going on here. It's an existing policy that is enjoyed within the urban service boundary, and it's being extended to the land use outside of the urban service boundary. That's the only change there. Tatiana, how about another question?
Well, we actually just got one about that. There was a question about, is that AMI just for Wimauma?
That AMI is countywide. So that is the county's definition, 80% AMI and below. State and federal does recognize up to 120% area median income for funding.
So another question we got from Ron Weaver is, density of 8 enough for affordable housing, clustering, true affordability?
That enough to achieve real affordability.
So again, that's the clustering ratio within the Wimauma Village 2. So that clustering ratio can achieve the townhouses and apartment houses and those typologies. That is not a high enough ratio if you were going to, say, do a small apartment building or courtyard apartments necessarily, depending on its scale. So we are looking to keep more of those courtyard apartments in the downtown area, so that the WVR2 does have the neighborhood component and pick up on some of that rural character that's there. If, you know, I mean, this is that again, that the clustering ratio is something that we thought about and developed based on the input and feedback that we got from the community.
And again, Ron, we're working within the existing confines of the plan for how the actual affordable housing density bonus works within the county. So going from 2 units to the acre to 3 units to the acre is in step with a 4 to 6, a 6 to 9 on the percentage of the increase. Also, of course, having a plan amendment, which is another story altogether outside of the rural service area in this land use category, is discouraged, if not prohibited. So, you know, that's where we're working with in that issue.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a question about the employment benefits. Why the move from employment benefits to community benefits? And what do community benefits entail? What do they mean?
Okay, so I don't mind these questions. It's kind of fun. So it's like Jeopardy.
Friendly, maybe legal extortion. Friendly, maybe legal extortion.
So
Where's Peterson when you need him? Where's Mike Peterson when you need him?
Right, I know, Mike Peterson, where are you? So the employment requirement, if everyone remembers, there was a certain number of jobs per housing unit that was required in order to build the housing units. That is how the current code is written, and it. And in doing the market analysis, determined that the measure is very difficult to make work. And so trying to measure and find that balance is what we were working within. And so based on recommendations that came out of the market analysis, it made sense to look at how we could redefine what would really benefit Wimauma. We know that the community wants jobs. We know that they're looking for jobs. We know that jobs are important. But the way the policy was written doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get those jobs. It just meant that they had to be there. So there was nothing in the policy that was necessarily encouraging the jobs to be spurred. And so we looked at other benefits that could be provided by new development. And so that's what the community benefits table that you'll see in the policy documents is a list of different benefits. So each new development, depending on its size, will select anywhere from, I think, 2 to 5 benefits from the list that would be contributed as part of the development. I'm going to get a lot of questions on that, I think.
Yeah, and one thing for Taryn to follow up on it is the employment and commercial requirement that you have there in Wimauma. You can think of it a little bit as a bank. Every time somebody wants to come and actually build in Wimauma, there's a bank of employment that exists along 674. That's the interpretation of your existing policy. So when somebody builds a subdivision, they're withdrawing those jobs. When there are no more jobs, the interpretation is then that there should be more jobs. If those jobs do not materialize, either through the developer providing those jobs or the market providing those jobs, then there shall not be that development. So what we're looking for here is a way to actually improve upon a system that our market analysis says does not function properly. It says that those numbers that are in that policy are too aggressive. And so we reworked those numbers, found it still to be too aggressive, and also found that it wasn't doing justice to the citizens of Wimauma. They weren't benefiting from it as those developments were coming in. And something else that they were asking for could possibly be put in its place, which are those community benefit requirements that Taryn spoke of.
So Jay, in essence, we now have a possibility of benefits that aren't one-dimensional, like the prior requirement. This allows us to talk about many different things that in the evolution of the community, we may need some sooner than others. And this is a way to sort of pick from the menu to get things we want when we need them, as opposed to a strict requirement that I would argue wasn't supposed to be a requirement. And two, as you say, the demographic marketing consultant said doesn't work and was improperly designed. So this, I think it's a better trade-off.
Taryn, will there be quid pro, following up on Mike's question, will there be quid pro quos performance standards where if you do a certain amount of open space, you'll get a certain amount of credit, or will it be left to an unknown discretion exercised 5 months later?
So there is there's a specific percentage that's listed as being a requirement, and then there's an additional percentage that is listed within
the 40% ramp up. Mm-hmm.
Correct. So there's a requirement for that, but if additional open space is included, then fits underneath one of those community benefits, that can actually be selected as one of those menu items that Mike mentioned. So if you do more than the required open space, then it counts as one of your community benefits. If you provide a certain infrastructure, that can count as one of your community benefits. I'm being very vague right now, but it's a specific list. We have a certain number of required housing types that each development is going to be required to do. But if you go above the basic requirement and provide another more diversity of your housing types, then that is also off the menu of the community benefits. If you do a land dedication for parks, for trails, for schools, that is also one of the items that is on the community benefits list as well. We know that. So does that help, Ron?
It does. Thank you. We may want to try to quantify some of the others the way you have open space and one or two others.
We had a question on the community benefit requirement, specifically on green housing standards. And they The question is, how does that benefit the Wimauma community as a whole, specifically the downtown? It seems to them it benefits the earth and the homeowner, but not the Wimauma community.
So, it's providing, again, a differentiated housing type through the green benefit. And yes, it does benefit the housing owner to some degree, but it also helps to benefit the community at large overall. So there's a variety of items on the list. Smaller developments that might only be developing 20 acres or so will have, need to have, there has to be a diversity items, I guess I would say, on the community benefits list. 20-acre development versus a 250-acre development are going to be providing a different level of benefit.
We had a question on open space. In a new development that uses clustering, what is envisioned in the extra land that is left as open space? Is it left natural? Is it landscaped and maintained by an HOA? What happens to it?
So there is an open space requirement of 40% of the overall development. And we have given some definitions so that 10% of that 40 is within the actual project site itself. So it can be through parks, through trails, through other green spaces that are contained within the development to help bring in some of the rural character to the developments themselves, and then having 30% of it remain contiguous. So it can be dedicated natural land. It can be used as a community benefit and dedicated for ELAP. So there are a number of options that are available to it. It's not a one size fits all requirement in terms of the open space.
While we're on the housing issues that's going on, I was listening earlier to some numbers that you gave about what it would cost to buy a house. Well, I don't know if anyone's really looked at it, the neighborhoodscout.com about Wimauma, and it tells us a lot about the population and the businesses and just the basic demographics of the area. And when you're looking at an area that's 28.5% below the poverty level, you're looking at almost a third of the entire population there. So when we're talking about benefits for the neighbor, for the people there, I mean, that's a huge obstacle to overcome. A third of your population is below poverty level. But let's talk about how can we make the city more equitable. What do we need to do from that perspective to build, to bring Wimauma into what we expect it to be?
So those are really good questions and tough ones. And it's also part of the reason that we had equity and health as key components that were the guiding principles of some of the policy decisions that we were making, as well as the overall community plan itself and the strategic action plan. There's a lot of components that have to come into play in order to make the community more equitable and to be able to help uplift the populations that are currently below poverty, and also those, I would say, that are within the United Way's ALICE range, which is the asset limited, income constrained, and employed group, which in our county is at about 40%. So these are people who struggle to pay the bills. And so being able to really think about how we create a self-sustaining community that can do that. This is one of the reasons we're talking about a diversified, housing types, and looking at ways for businesses to be able to open in the downtown and giving them a place to go, creating better connectivity and mobility through walking and biking will help the community be able to access opportunities within. And so this is something that we also focused on, so that people aren't having to drive to get around, but that the community is safe enough for them to be able to walk to the things that they need within it, whether it be to work or to the store. And we think that those things are really important to incorporate as well.
Taryn, can I add something for John also? Because he was kind of getting at the point of, even under the county's general affordable housing standards, that doesn't automatically mean it's affordable for some of the residents of Wimauma. And my response to that is, well, we get a lot closer with the incentives program you're trying to promote, and then Florida Home Partnership does the best they can with that. But given that the county has now established a affordable housing trust fund, in time, if they deem it is important enough to make homes affordable for Wimauma residents, they can always subsidize the standard Florida federal grant programs that Mike Marina already works with, if they want to buy down the cost of these homes for those residents. And so the only way you're going to get there is to start down the market incentives you've offered. And then if that's not enough, you got to find out, is the government willing to step in and make up the difference? Because you just can't wish it. You have to find a way to make it. So I thought I'd add that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And going to the last two speakers, who were both excellent, by the way, have you considered what we affectionately call weatherization, which is where you take an existing unit that needs $1,000 or $1,500 fix to be weatherized and turn it back into productive housing instead of abandoned or whatever, instead of building a $150,000 unit?
Yes. So Ron, that's a good point. And the county does have a weatherization program in place. And so it is something that the community could take up. And some of you have heard me talk about the concern with the number of mobile homes, and we know that some of those are going to be up for replacement and things like that. And as we look at resiliency and sustained resiliency in the county, being able to put people in better sustainable housing where they don't have to evacuate from a non-evacuation zone, I think is going to ultimately be something that is a key component when we look at level of service for evacuation. And so, Wimauma is a community that for the majority of it, except for a very tiny piece at the very southern part, it is a non-evacuation zone. The community is considered to be, higher ground, but those residents that are within mobile homes are still required to evacuate. So, yeah. More questions?
Yes, I was thinking maybe we could actually address the government center question that we got earlier. There was a concern on the placement of the government district. They were asking, is this the best place for it? Could it be on the east end of the community where the fire station is? And, maybe talk about some of the downtown uses.
Sure. So government districts oftentimes are used as anchor points. And so we looked at what could help serve as an anchor and where there was some developable area. So yes, it's true, there is some residential around it. There is residential scattered all throughout downtown. And again, because the overlay for downtown is not requiring rezoning, those properties are able to stay. They're not being required to rezone or anything like that. So there is space that is available. And the reason that we located it there was to help serve as an anchor. It is across from a bit catty corner from some of the lake. And it also is on one of the vacated right-of-ways, which we've identified as the potential paseos. So it could serve as an open market space for farmers markets and things like that. That was something that was desired by the community. And we located it where the post office is. So that's another, government facility. And so that was one of the reasons that we liked that particular location for the government district, as well as its developability and the fact that it is somewhat centralized as an anchor at the end of the Main Street corridor on 674.
All right. We also got a question on mobile home, replacement mobile homes. There are currently a lot of mobile homes in Wimauma, and there's a concern about whether or not the zoning would be changed on that or not, and would replacement mobile homes still be permitted?
I see Jay turning toward the camera. Do you want that one, Jay?
It was just funny because I was actually about to type to Wanda, and then Tatiana said it. So yeah, for Wanda and for the rest of the group, this plan does not usurp, if you want to use the term, any of the current code as it relates to mobile homes for their placement or their replacement. All it might do, as Taryn has talked about, is provide some incentive for landowners to look for alternatives when the life cycle of that mobile home is no more. They may decide to do something else with the land rather than the mobile home. But by no means does this actually impact. It is still the county's rules and regulations and anything from the state that also has rules and regulations for mobile homes.
Well, I do want to point out it is currently 7:40, so we're a little bit beyond our time, but I just wanted to make sure that we could answer as many questions as possible this evening for all of you. But just know that if we don't get to your question tonight, we will be answering all of these questions and then actually posting that on our website. Maybe have one or two more questions.
Trump asked what the recount was coming to in Wisconsin, somewhere down here. He tweeted, "What's the outcome of the Wisconsin recount?" on your chat box.
I don't know the answer to that. I've been just focused on all of you tonight. So that's where I am. Tatiana, there was a transportation question related to 674 and FDOT. So we have proposed some street sections for 674 and safety improvements to the intersections. That is something that we, I think, are hoping to discuss further with FDOT. We do think that having safety improvements on 674 is really important, especially with the schools being located there. And since it is the downtown area and the Main Street corridors. And so this is something that will be a continued conversation, but I did want to put that in there that is something that is underway.
Could I ask two questions? One, what was the response that you got from the latest survey that you sent out? With the signs that were at the post office in various places, did you get much response?
We actually didn't have a survey for the recent signs that we put up. We only had a link to our website, but we do have a new survey that is on our website now, and that went live, I believe, this week. So, but we did have a survey earlier in the year,
Okay.
which we received a lot of feedback on that survey, and then some of those responses and comments that was included in the drafts that are out right now.
Okay. And my second question is this: the only sign that I am seeing for these meetings is at Railroad and 674. I don't know where other signs are, but they don't seem to be very visible to let our community know about the meetings. Just a comment.
Okay.
Thank you for telling us that.
Yes. All right, we can probably take one more question.
I have one. It's really not so much a question as it is a comment.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a lot in our breakout room, and John brought up the question of just folks that are really at the lower economic strata, and how do we deal with them to try to, and the mobile home question. the county and Florida Home Partnership, Habitat for Humanity, and other nonprofits do the best they can for the low income and the, to some extent, down to 50%. But if we might want to think about, as a group, talking to the county about targeting some areas in Wimauma and doing some sort of target area kind of thing where there's a concentration of folks that have a lot of needs, and try to develop some specific programs to help the people that are struggling the most, as a lot of this stuff kind of happens around them, that they're not forgotten. But that is going to take commitment from the government to do that. Our wonderful county commission several months ago committed, I think it was $17 million to multifamily development. And I'm sure as this area grows and becomes more marketable for a tax credit, some kind of tax credit program that Cami had mentioned development before, that the county commission, I think, would probably look favorably on some funding or putting funding into a multifamily project in this area to help the folks at the very low end of the economic strata. But the folks that are really way below 50%, very, very low income, that takes a targeted, you have to be intentional about that, and the government has to say, we're going to try to do something about this. We don't have Florida Home Partnership nor Habitat nor any of the nonprofits, even with substantial help from the government, can't do that. That's got to be a real commitment, and say, we're going to do something and make it a target area. There's all kinds of community development block grant target areas. City of Tampa has a program where they work with 3 different levels: Habitat, a nonprofit, and a market rate builder to do different levels of housing. And I'm not saying that program, but something targeted for the unique needs of Wimauma. And that's the only way you're going to get to the folks that are really struggling at the very lower end of it.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. We really appreciate all the knowledge that you have brought to this conversation over the previous months. And I think what you've done is you've actually moved that conversation, or moved that needle, so that we can continue it even after this process is done, about what we can do in other parts of the county. So thank you for that. Tatiana, what do you think? Should we have the last polling question now, or do you have time for one more question?
If someone has a quick one, they want to jump in.
I just want to make a quick comment to follow up on what Michael's saying, and also comments that we heard from others. I think that the questions that are raised about the folks that are below the poverty line warrant additional discussion and creativity beyond the traditional housing, affordable housing programs. They're not catching it. They're not getting it. They're being missed and they're being left out. And we need to have some really detailed conversations in the community about how to make things, how can we work within the existing programs to incentivize people to serve that population? Because unfortunately, fact of the matter is if we don't get creative on that, we're not going to see a change. We've been doing affordable housing programs for 25, 30, 50 years, and we're still not touching that group. And we really need, and I know Commissioner Overman is working really hard on that, but I think even within the subset of Wimauma and its unique needs, probably warrants a whole separate conversation outside of, whether it's inside or outside of the community plan.
If I was smarter, I would have said it that way, Cami. Thank you. That was very, very eloquent.
The community plan does address this to some degree, and we looked at a piece of county-owned land that's in the downtown area of Wimauma as a potential catalyst site that could bring together a number of unique programs, including the community development block grants, There are a number of surrounding counties that utilize them to help provide new housing or mobile home replacement programs, as well as those that are focused on issues of resiliency, which that would fit into the category. There can be unique things done with public-private partnerships in this way as well for a catalyst site of this nature. One of the things that we had proposed in the community plan was that having a type of health clinic, health center, whether it be the Department of Health or privately run, that helps this population be included as one of the ground floor elements in the downtown, to again be able to pick up on the equity component and access to healthcare and incorporating that within a housing development itself. So there's a lot of components of it. Kami, I agree. I think that this can go much further. And I think the potential of having maybe a special workshop to specifically talk about some of these targeted strategies would be, you know, helpful to the community overall, because it is something the community will continue to struggle with until we can find ways, you know, to lift everyone up.
Well, I thank everyone for, you know, listening and being concerned, having that concern. I don't believe anybody that's here tonight want a beautiful new downtown Wimauma to be like 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest, 2 blocks beyond the White House. We don't want that in our community. So it is perhaps a separate conversation, but it's definitely something that we've got to look at. 1/3 of our population.
Tatiana, do you want to do the final poll question?
Sure. I'd say we can definitely move on to our last poll for the evening.
Tatiana, I don't have the 3rd question listed on here.
I got it.
You got it? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we will have online, you can take an expanded survey. And also, if we should see you on Saturday, we'll have some paper surveys. It's the same survey. You can take those with you, or you can leave them and drop them off with us. We'll also have some postage paid envelopes if you'd like to take some to provide to your neighbors who cannot attend on Saturday or who did not have the opportunity to attend tonight.
All right. Has everybody voted? I think that's pretty much everybody. All right, that's good to hear. A lot of people are in favor of the study recommendations. Some people are still on the fence, so we've got some more work to do. But I do want to thank everybody for participating tonight. And I want to let you know there's going to be additional opportunities to provide input. As Jade mentioned, we have a survey. It's currently on our project website. So we invite you to review the drafts if you haven't already, and take the survey and provide us some more feedback. We also have that in-person open house this upcoming Saturday from 1 to 3:30 at Wimauma Elementary. So we will be there in person. And we're actually going to be playing tonight's presentation on Saturday, so that way it's the same information being provided. It's going to be playing every 30 minutes, so you actually don't have to be there from 1 to 3:30. You can actually just come for a short period of time. And you can also take the survey in person there as well. So you can drop in anytime. But if you'd like to watch the presentation again or not, we suggest you arrive at 5 minutes past the hour. So 1:05 or at 35 minutes past the hour, because we're just going to have the video playing over and over again. So I wanted to give you all just more information on the next steps. So after the open houses, we're actually going to be briefing the Planning Commission next Monday on the feedback that we've heard tonight, and also what we hear on Saturday. And also at this exact meeting on Monday, we're also going to have the consultant WTL presenting on the final Wimauma community character profile and the market analysis. So if you'd like to hear more about that, please tune in. So in regards to the schedule for the community plan update and the WVR2 study, in December, we're going to have some workshops with the Planning Commission and the BOCC to go over some of the revised drafts that will incorporate comments that we've received from you all. And then in the new year, January or February, the public hearing process will begin. So there are still a lot of opportunities for the public to provide us with more information, more comments, and ask questions. Jay, Taryn, and I were available by phone, by email, by Zoom, if you'd like. So yeah, so we're going to continue to post updates on the Wimauma project webpage. So if you haven't already signed up for our email list, you can sign up on that page. You can just click the sign up button under our public engagement section. So, and again, thank you all for attending. We hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was great. Thank you.
Bye, Santos.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Santos. Michael.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Karen. Holly.
Bye.
Good report, Holly. Thank you. Thank you, Tatiana.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks, Mike.
You guys did a great job on this. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you for coming, Commissioner Smith.
Bye. Thank you for letting me listen in. I just tried to be a fly on the wall, but I wanted to get an understanding of what was going on here. So I tried not to interfere, but understand what was going on.
Always glad to hear from you. Glad you're here.
Thank you. Good to see you too, Ron.
Take care, Dana. Good to see my transportation hero. How are you, Dana? Take care.
I'm good. You too.
Well.
Yeah, I can go ahead and end the meeting for everybody, and both Jay recorded the first half before the breakout groups, and I recorded the second half. But all right, I'm gonna end it now. So thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks, Tatiana.
Good night.
Good night. Bye, Fatima.